Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Julie Chrisley bunks with poisonous snakes behind bars. In a shocking new update from her children, Chrisley knows best. Fans have learned Julie Chrisley is bunking with poisonous snakes behind bars. It was during a recent episode of Savannah Chrisley's podcast that she and her brother Chase explained the scary living conditions of their parents. Julie Chrisley bunks with poisonous snakes behind bars. It was Savannah Chrisley who spoke of the poisonous snakes behind bars with her mother first. Initially, she said there were rattlesnakes within the prison walls that would get in the cells and be near the inmates' beds. Her brother Chase chimed in to correct his sister. It wasn't rattlesnakes. While the exact name of the snakes behind the prison walls eluded him, he told listeners that he could confirm it was some time a poisonous snake that was bunking in the cell with his mother. Savannah and Chase Chrisley proceeded to detail the wild way the prison is reportedly dealing with their infestation problem as well. Chase and Savannah explain. Sadly, Todd and Julie Chrisley's children explain that the snakes aren't the only problem with their parents' living conditions, and they aren't happy about it. Savannah Chrisley understands this is prison life. Trying to calm her very frustrated brother down, Savannah Chrisley reminds that their parents aren't staying at some sort of Four Seasons hotel. They are in prison right now. And there isn't much sympathy from the real world because of the you do the crime, you do the time train of thought. Chase Chrisley has a difficult time accepting that because he knows in his heart that their parents didn't do anything wrong and were railroaded by the government. Savannah Chrisley, however, adds that the system is far too corrupted to fix the problem. Sadly, she reveals that the federal prisons are warned ahead of time when the director is coming to inspect potential problems. So the prison staff has ample time to slap band-aids and temporary fixes on the problems. Savannah and Chase were in agreement the only way to really fix the problems within the prison walls would be for the director to show up and inspect the facilities without warning them that she was coming first. Savannah and Chase Chrisley reveal that in addition to snakes, their parents are suffering through the triple digits with no air conditioning, and they are being forced to live with black mold. Todd and Julie Chrisley's children, however, did go on to warn everyone that the day was coming when all the dirty secrets about the federal prison system will come to light. Until then, they were both leaning on their faith for strength. Julie Chrisley had always imagined that her life, even in its darkest moments, would never stray far from the pristine southern charm she had cultivated for decades. But as the heavy, rusted door to her cell block slammed shut behind her, it became clear that reality had veered far from her manicured dreams. Julie, once the epitome of luxury and refinement, now faced the harsh, unforgiving world of prison life, and the whispers that had reached her about snakes, literal, venomous snakes, were no longer the stuff of metaphor or idle gossip. It had started innocuously enough. A fellow inmate, a wiry woman named Carla, with a face weathered by years of hard living, had sidled up to Julie during lunch. Carla's eyes danced with a mix of amusement and malice as she leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Welcome to Block E," she said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Word is, you've got the bunk with the snakes." Julie raised an impeccably arched eyebrow, feigning composure. "I beg your pardon." Carla grinned, revealing teeth that hadn't seen a dentist in years. "Oh, you'll see. They like the warmth, you know. Come out at night. Slither up close to whoever's lucky enough to get the bottom bunk. Maybe they'll like you, or maybe they won't." Julie had brushed it off as a cruel joke, a hazing ritual for the new inmate. She had more pressing concerns, adjusting to the bland, gray sameness of her surroundings, learning the unspoken rules of prison hierarchy, and figuring out how to maintain her dignity while scrubbing toilets. But as the days passed, the warnings grew louder and more insistent. "Watch your step," another inmate warned ominously as Julie made her way back to her cell. "You never know where they'll be hiding." By the time Julie returned to her bunk that evening, she was thoroughly unsettled. The cell, a cold, cramped space shared with a burly woman named Rita, seemed no different than usual. But as Julie settled onto her bunk, her nerves were on edge, every shadow and creak amplified in the suffocating silence of the night. It wasn't until the third night that she saw it. Julie had been drifting in and out of a restless sleep when she felt it, a light, almost imperceptible brush against her arm. Her eyes snapped open, and there it was, a thin, glistening form, its dark scales catching the faint glow of the hallway lights. A snake, no more than a foot long, was slithering along the edge of her mattress. For a moment, Julie was paralyzed, her breath caught in her throat. The snake's tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air, its beady eyes focused on her. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it slipped over the edge of the bunk and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, Julie approached Rita, her voice trembling. There was a snake in our cell last night. Rita didn't even look up from her book. Told you. They liked the bottom bunk. Julie's protests to the guards were met with indifference. Snakes are part of the ecosystem, one guard said with a shrug. Keeps the rats in check. Desperation set in and Julie tried everything she could think of. Stuffing cracks in the walls with toilet paper. Fashioning makeshift barriers out of towels. But nothing worked. The snakes kept coming, their nocturnal visits becoming an almost nightly occurrence. She learned to identify them by sight: the slim, harmless garter snakes that merely startled her, and the larger, more menacing ones that made her blood run cold. One evening, she came face to face with the copperhead, its triangular head unmistakable. It had coiled itself on the floor beneath her bunk, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent intelligence. Julie had never screamed so loudly in her life. The incident earned her a reputation among the inmates. Some found her terror amusing, while others offered grudging sympathy. Even Rita, who had initially dismissed Julie's complaints, began to take notice. Maybe you're cursed, she joked one evening, though there was an edge of unease in her voice. Julie didn't laugh. As the weeks wore on, the snakes became a metaphor for everything she was enduring behind bars. They were a manifestation of her vulnerability, her loss of control. In the outside world, Julie had always been the one in charge, the one who dictated the terms of her existence. Here, she was powerless, at the mercy of forces she couldn't understand or predict. But Julie Chrisley was nothing if not resilient. Determined to reclaim some semblance of control, she began to educate herself. She borrowed books from the prison library, learning about the snakes that shared her living space. She memorized their habits, their preferred hiding spots, the warning signs of aggression. Slowly, her fear began to transform into something else: a grudging respect for these creatures that, like her, were simply trying to survive. One evening, as Julie sat on her bunk, a small garter snake emerged from a crack in the wall. Instead of recoiling, she watched it with a calm, measured gaze. It moved hesitantly, as if sensing her presence, before disappearing beneath the bed. Guess you're getting used to them, Rita observed from her bunk. Julie nodded. Adapt or perish, right? The snakes were still an unwelcome presence, but they no longer held the same power over her. They were a reminder of her circumstances, yes, but also of her ability to endure. And so, Julie settled into her new reality. The woman who had once shuddered at the thought of a chipped nail now faced down venomous reptiles with a steely resolve. In a strange way, the snakes became her allies, a symbol of her resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. They were a reminder that even in the darkest, most inhospitable places, I found a way to persevere. And so would she.